In Chicago, two comedian skeptics named Andy and Art were mysteriously abducted by the illusionary mastermind and conspiracy theorist known only as Mr. Bunker. The following serves as a record of Bunker's attempt to convince non-believers of the truth about conspiracies and paranormal activity. Andy and Art give an uninterrupted presentation and verdict on the plausibility of these offbeat topics, delivering what they call the whole enchilada. Will Mr. Bunker convince these two skeptics any of this is real? Will it convince you?
And welcome to Mr. Bunker's Conspiracy Time podcast. As always, I'm your co-host, Arthur Stone, and with me as always is your co-host, Andy Hart. Andy?
Hi, Art.
Hi, Andy.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again as well, Andy.
Nice to see you.
Oh, no. I've been joined by Mr. Freeze. He's here to kill me. For those of you just joining us, welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Andy and I are, this is what's going on, right? Andy and I are two best friends in the whole wide world, and we were abducted by a conspiracy theorist who goes by the name of Mr. Bunker. He's the titular bunker, and he's trapped us in his bunker, his underground doomsday prepper bunker. He's abducted us, and every week he captures us, it seems.
He's duped us.
He's tricked us. He's tricked us. He keeps us down here, and he forces us to podcast about various conspiracy theories because he wants to convince the world and inform the world of his theories. So that's that's what's going on. If this is your first time tuning in. So every week, Andy and I have been, like we said, duped by this guy. He comes in, he fools us, and then as soon as we finish the podcast, for the last 3 weeks, he has let us go.
We just get to leave.
Every Sunday, he captures us, and every Sunday evening, after we finish the podcast, he lets us go.
It's catch and release.
It's catch and release. We're like two,
but then re-catch again.
We're like two big mouth basses that he has a really weird relationship with.
Yeah,
like an old fisherman who's out on the sea and he's like, oh, that's the one that got away.
This is a real Hemingway sort of situation.
Oh, he is so mad at the sea. He's an old man and he's mad.
He's angry.
Today's no different. He treats us nicely. Like, let's be honest, this bunker, as much as it sucks to be here and it sucks to get abducted, there are some nice amenities.
It's not bad.
There's food. There's a bathroom.
We're warming to it.
Which
is probably a bad thing.
Yes, it's probably a bad thing. I will not put all the blame on him, and this is not Stockholm Syndrome.
No.
We're also very lazy, and when he lets us go on Sunday evenings, we kind of just want to go home, and we keep forgetting to tell the police.
We have things to do. We have a life.
We have things to do. We have families.
We have a lot on our minds.
We have jobs.
We can't be expected all the time to worry about what the titular bunker is up to.
That's right. Like, I forget. Like, dude, like, give me a fucking break, dude. Like, I got taxes to pay, and like, I gotta do like insurance stuff.
Yeah.
And I gotta cook food, and I don't have time to remember that I got abducted by a crazy person and to tell the police.
Like, I can't be responsible all the time for my own whereabouts, and I can't be responsible all the time for discerning where I am at any one moment if I don't know.
We're not mad at you, the listeners.
No, we're just there's some simmering frustration.
Yeah, we're on the back burner,
right?
With ourselves. This is a common theme, I think, in both of our lives, is we're just sometimes a little lazy.
Sure.
And this is no different.
This is one of those times.
So earlier today, Andy, I was running an errand. I was out and about, strolling. And I was just running a regular errand. And then all of a sudden, I'm kind of a superstitious person. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
I won't walk under a ladder. I won't if salt falls, I will throw it over my shoulder like you're supposed to. That's about as far as I go. If I see a black cat, maybe I won't let it cross my path, but it's kind of hard to control cats. They kind of do what they want. And you don't see that many feral cats in the big city. You know, I mean, maybe you do.
Would you break a mirror?
No. Oh, God, no. Andy, I wouldn't even talk about breaking a mirror. I'll Breaking Bad, but I won't break a mirror.
You just did talk about breaking a mirror.
Oh, no. No, I won't break mirrors. But I don't really go around like down to Home Depot and break mirrors for fun. It's not really something.
I've done it before.
It's a fun pastime for you.
It's neat.
I'm a superstitious guy, so I was walking down the street and I saw a ladder and I didn't want to walk under it, so I kind of like had to move around it. You know, I had to go around the ladder, which was a little inconvenient. And as I did that, a big bucket of gack fell on my head. Old school Nickelodeon
gack?
Yeah, old school Nickelodeon gack fell on my head. I got slimed big time. And I was looking around. I thought Mark Summers would be there. I thought I was on Double Dare, but no, just turns out I got slimed. And then what am I going to do? I'm out and about. I can't. So now I'm trying to walk back to go home because I got to go clean myself. I can't run errands.
You got to unslime yourself.
That's right.
De-gack.
I got to de-gack. And the gack hardened. And it froze and it encased me in gack. Much like Han Solo was encased in carbonite.
Yeah.
I was encased in gack. And I even made the same face where I had the hands up. Like, "Arr!"
Wow.
Yeah, I got encased in gack. And wouldn't you know it, Bunker came up dressed like a little construction worker. Just picked me up. I couldn't do anything. I was encased in gack.
You could see him. You knew he was doing it, but you were powerless.
I was powerless. And he blindfolded me and put me in the back of some kind of vehicle. And here I was at the bunker.
Incredible.
Yeah.
As Nickelodeon Kathy would say, gack.
Oh my God. She would say that, wouldn't she?
Yeah. She would, for sure.
All right, Andy, what about you? How'd it get you this week?
Well, I was doing a little grocery shopping.
Classic.
So I was at the supermarket.
Not something you like to do.
No, not a big fan. And this situation did not improve my outlook on that. I went into the supermarket, and as you know, listeners of the show may not know, I'm a fan of the Dr. Pepper soft drink. I enjoy its flavor. I mostly drink the diet caffeine-free diet Dr. Pepper.
Triple D.
Or
DDP.
DP. Yeah.
Time and Dallas Page.
Yeah. And, they had a big display at the store, where they make a castle out of like boxes of cans of soda. And so I go into this pop castle looking for diet caffeine-free Dr. Pepper. It's all made out of Dr. Pepper.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it? Dressed in a full diet caffeine-free Dr. Pepper night outfit is the titular Bunker.
He's dressed like the Bud Light Knight.
Yeah, but the diet caffeine-free Dr. Pepper night.
Oh, and he got you?
Yeah, he put me to the sword. He held me at sword point. He forced me to march out of the store. I mean, I got into his van, and then he brought me back here.
And those aluminum cans are sharp.
That sword, I'm not messing with it.
You can pick a lock with those things.
And that thing is light. I mean, that's a good strength to weight ratio on aluminum.
He got you, dude. He knows your weakness. Caffeine-free Dr. Pepper.
Look, I broke the cardinal rule. You're not supposed to walk into the display. And that's on me, for sure. Like, if there's a castle made out of pop at the store, don't walk into it.
Yeah. I'm sure if there's any Jewel employees who are listening, they're going to be thankful that we said that.
Yeah. I mean, this is...
R.I.P.
You're welcome.
Dominic's.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gone but not forgotten.
Man, he knighted you. He medieval timesed you.
Yeah. He got
you good, man. Well, listeners, every week we get... He just has a way with costumes. I'm starting to think that maybe somewhere in his background, there was some kind of theater experience.
There's gotta be. The costume. I mean,
he's got a lot of time on his hands.
I mean, unless he's got someone working for him who makes these costumes, like...
We've never met anybody else.
No, he's doing... I mean, this was an elaborate outfit made out of cardboard boxes.
And that means he had to have like either drank or stored. Drunk.
Oh, he's probably got a big vat somewhere around here.
He had to drink it a large amount of
He
diet
had,
caffeine-free
he had
Dr.
sword.
Pepper.
He had the shield.
He had a cape.
Yeah, he had a cape.
Wow, he had a full helmet.
Full helmet.
He had a crest on the shield.
Yes. His coat of arms.
Wow. Jeez. He went all out.
Yeah.
The guy spares no expense. I mean, I don't know where he found Nickelodeon GAC. Because that stuff's hard to find.
Honestly, good for him, I guess.
And it had to have been like original GAC, because otherwise it wouldn't have froze so well or encased me as well as it did.
Yeah.
You ever do that as a kid?
Encase things in GAC?
Kind of. Remember like in elementary school, they would you would mix like it was like cornstarch with glue.
Oh, yeah.
And you make that weird shit that's like liquid, but when you punch it really hard, it turns into a solid.
Yeah.
Or the other way around.
Right.
You ever do that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, where under pressure it like has resistance.
It's neat.
Yeah.
Should do that more often.
Yeah. Do it just for fun now.
I can do that whenever I want. I'm an adult.
You remember Floam?
I do remember Floam. Floam was weird. It smelled weird.
Yeah.
Isn't there some like lawsuit with Floam?
I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe my parents' carpet is suing Floam.
You got it caught in your
Because
parents'
it
carpet?
took a beating.
I
from
think
Floam.
out of all the different putty varieties, silly putty is... Okay, silly putty or Play-Doh? Who's the king of putty varieties?
I think the Play-Doh is.
Wow.
Play-Doh's a little more pliable.
Wow. Play-Doh hardens though, and it doesn't taste good. You want to eat it.
Yeah,
Come on.
it's a little bit salty, but
You didn't try it, did you?
yeah, I tried
Yeah,
it.
you
Of
did.
course, it's a little bit salty, but
Yeah.
it's not bad. But yeah, it doesn't taste good. It's not designed to be a food product.
They should.
They should make an edible Play-Doh.
I don't know. I kind of like silly putty. I had a lot more silly putty as a kid.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Those eggs.
Yeah.
I went gaga for those things.
Silly putty.
You could fucking it was like a stress ball. You could like rip it and it would make these like, you ever ripped your silly putty?
Yeah, sure.
Rip it. And then you would like, you could roll it into a snake.
You could do that with Play-Doh.
Did you know that silly putty also copies stuff?
Yeah, if you put it down on like ink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll absorb. It like
Play-Doh
peels
can't
off
do
some of
that.
the ink. Do we need to do that?
Yeah. Because you can draw something and then silly putty it. Silly putty stick it.
All right.
I don't know. I think I'm team silly putty.
Team Play-Doh.
Silly putty also had cooler colors. OG silly putty was just pink, but I had some cool cosmic colors.
There was more colors than just the original silly putty.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I had like cosmic color ones. It was like purple and blue and had like sparkles in it.
Oh, I've never heard of this.
It was like cosmic. Dope. I'm telling you, man. Team silly putty. Well, Andy, we're opposed on these two things, but
I don't think this is one of those situations where
much like you can form silly putty and Play-Doh into anything your heart desires, today's topic that the titular bunker has given us to investigate is simulation theory. There's a lot to unpack here, Andy.
is there ever?
You ever hear about this? I mean, you probably have, but you ever hear about this before we had to look into it?
Yeah, I've heard about it before. It's the Matrix.
It's it's the basis for the Matrix.
Yeah. I would not say it's exactly the Matrix, but
Right.
there's a lot in the Matrix that's
It's
about
Matrix-esque.
simulation theory. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it's about the Matrix. A lot of it is kind of very heady stuff. You know, this one's not going to put you in the couch.
Yeah.
This one's in your head.
That's true. This is one you got to think about.
It really, and it's dense too. Like
Yeah.
so much of this, the research was very, very dense and tough to kind of unpack. But it's an interesting theory. It's almost not as much conspiracy theory as it is a philosophical and almost religious discussion.
Yeah. It's way more, to me, it's more philosophical than it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some technical, like technological
Yeah.
aspects to it. But
We're stretching
Moreover-
we're stretching the limit of what, I think Bunker wants us to, because I think he's pretty convinced that we live in a simulation.
right.
So he wants us to kind of talk about it.
Yeah. I think he definitely feels like that either if we're there, I mean, he can see it happening.
Well, Andy, there's no time like the present, right? And whether this is
there?
this is virtual or not, baby, we gotta give the listeners the whole enchilada. That's what we set out to do.
That's our goal. And it's coming to you hot and fresh.
Here is simulation theory. Over the past few years, tech mastermind and noted meme connoisseur Elon Musk stated that he believes there is a 1 in a billion chance that we are the base reality, meaning simply that we may live in a simulation and that in the very near future, our reality will become indistinguishable from the game simulations we play.
Simulation theory is a hypothesis that proposes that all of reality is a simulation and that computers are dictating our every choice. While past civilizations have had similar discussions and conundrums, now more than ever, the idea that our reality is not in fact our reality seems like our reality. Are we living in a computer simulation? How do we know what is real? How do we explain phenomena such as deja vu? Did a higher power simulate us based on themselves? Are we that higher power? Is the burrito I ate for lunch the burrito I chose to eat? Or is some 0011 robot dictating whether I'm shilling out 80 cents for guac today?
Musk, in an interview at Vox Media, remarked that 40 years ago we had Pong. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing, and it's getting better every year. 40 or 100 years from now, could there be the computing power necessary to simulate an entire universe?
Current VR technology already hacks the brain neurologically, so it's basically making our eyes perceive a reality that doesn't exist. Augmented reality technology gets stronger every year, so it's just a matter of time until it masks what we perceive as our reality. It's not an unfathomable concept.
But there are some complex factors outside of this that explore just how close that future could and might be. Oxford professor Nick Bostrom sets up his simulation theory like this in 3 separate ideations. 1, the human species is very likely to go extinct before reaching a post-human age. 2, any post-human civilization is extremely unlikely to run a significant number of simulations of their evolutionary history, or variations thereof. Or 3, we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation.
Now, Bostrom isn't arguing that either statement has more merit than the other, but rather that one of the statements is true. If the first 2 are not true, then there are more people living in simulations than in the real world.
If option 1 is true, we go extinct before we get the chance to really explore total harmony between man and machine. This can happen in a plethora of fun ways like natural disasters, nuclear war, or our favorite, molecular nanobacteria that consumes all organic matter. This future sure looks bleak.
In option 2, the future Matrix architects possess the ability to run computer simulations of the entirety of the human race, but don't. Why? Well, one reason might be ethics. If we are the avatars of simulated humans bouncing around this virtual world, is that ethical? Is creating a human race immoral? Do the architects of our pain and suffering not feel any remorse for giving us a reality in which we feel pain and suffering? Would future architects feel it immoral to stand idle while us virtual folk commit atrocities against one another?
Maybe it's not all bad. Maybe the post-human architects are so advanced that they don't need to run a computer simulation of their ancestors. I mean, if you're at the point where man and machine are almost intertwined, do you really need to look to the past for answers? Instead of running a virtual Westworld for their own amusement, Maybe they simply electrically stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain and call it a day. I mean, recreational activities like video games would be silly to advanced folks of the singularity.
Either way, we can't possibly know how future humans with immense computer power will behave. But what we do know is that current humans love to play in virtual worlds, and current humans feel almost no remorse for locking their Sims in bathrooms and setting the house on fire while they pee on the floor. So, post-humanity will require some significant changes to their motivations.
That brings us to option 3, which suggests that we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. Before we break this down any further, we should crunch a few numbers and see what kind of computer power we'd need to run a simulation of the entire universe. Because let's face it, the GTX 1080 and Ryzen 2700 we're recording this episode on isn't going to cut it.
We'd need a pretty complex computer able to fake reality well enough to simulate all of mankind existing. While science is making leaps and bounds in terms of processing power, again, 40 years ago we had Pong, what exactly would we need to simulate a single human? A human brain is much like a computer. It relies on a series of inputs and processes information as electrical signals. So, for example, your ears decode the sound of this podcast, parts of your brain decode what I'm saying and interpret it so you can understand it, your eyes read the time left in the podcast, and so on. And you do all this in nanoseconds without realizing it. Scientists have made attempts to replicate neural tissues and approximate that the human brain can run 10 to the 14th power operations per second.
But in reality, we can't interpret all information surrounding us that fast. So a computer would need only to simulate as much as we can take in, which is much less than simulating cortical activity in general. But what about the world around us? The ground, the trees, the birds in the sky? Well, the computer would only need to simulate only what is around us so that we don't notice any irregularities. It goes back to the old, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody is around to hear it, does it really make a sound argument? On top of that, an advanced computer would only need to include certain properties for simulated objects, like texture, appearance, weight. Anything microscopic could be added in the simulation ad hoc.
That all seems like a tall order, but computers are really powerful already and really efficient. Scientists such as Eric Drexler are working on designs for a computer the size of a sugar cube that can run 10 to the 21st power operations a second. This again goes back to the Pong analogy. If computer designs today already can outperform a human brain in terms of functional power, what will they look like in another 40 years? As computer power advances and our research into quantum computing improves, what would it take to simulate an entire universe? Bostrom outlines the idea of a computer the size of a planet based on current nanotechnological design, which are far from optimal, that can produce 10 to the 42nd power operations per second. A computer of this magnitude would have no problem simulating the entirety of the human race.
This is a lot to take in, but physicist and consciousness researcher Tom Campbell breaks it down like this. He uses World of Warcraft as an example. In the game, you have your avatar, your dwarf fighter or your level 80 Tauren warlock. You, the player, control the avatar through your computer. The avatar exists in a reality that is unaware of the computer being used to control it. It only knows that when you input a certain key, it either jumps or moves or attacks. We, the player, are the avatar's consciousness. Without our input, the avatar doesn't do anything. It is unconscious. Campbell says that if this world is a virtual reality or simulation, then the computer used to create our world and the consciousness used to direct input to that world must both be outside the created world of our reality. Our bodies are avatars, and our consciousness is outside of our physical world.
Consciousness is an information system. It relies on input from the world around it through our 5 senses, and this is how we define our reality. Our consciousness is individualized. There is no way to know what someone else is perceiving or interpreting. But we all have individual consciousnesses working together like a real information system, and the purpose of it is to grow and give feedback and optimize. The way we do this is very similar to leveling up our avatars in WoW. We cooperate, we work together, we gain experiences, we spread love.
Let's bring it back to the physical world for a moment and discuss the double slit experiment. Campbell and many other simulation theorists reference this experiment as another example of a bizarre phenomenon that could explain why we live in a simulation. So without putting you to sleep like Mr. Johnson's honors physics class, the double slit experiment was essentially an experiment where scientists shot a beam of electrons at a wall with two identical slits cut in it at a significant distance apart. Now there was a backdrop behind the slit-cut wall to catch the electrons. What they found was that when the electrons were undetected, meaning they didn't use a device to monitor what the electrons did as they passed through the slits, they behaved much like a wave. There was a diffraction pattern spread across the backdrop, and this is highly unusual. But it gets weirder. When the electrons were detected, they behaved like particles would. There were two orderly silhouettes that appeared on the backdrop where the slits were cut. This is especially weird because no one expected electrons to act like a wave, but no one especially expected the electrons to act in an orderly fashion when being messed with by a detector. This experiment raised a lot more questions than it answered. Is it another act of weird quantum shenanigans? Or is it the computer simulation adding information in as needed?
The craziness of simulation theory dates real far back. Humans have always posited theories on reality versus simulation. Descartes asked us to imagine an extracted brain in a vat stimulated by fake sensory input. How do we know we aren't all brains in a big tub somewhere? The idea is interesting, but the practice and longevity of such an experience is non-existent, so it looks like it may not be true. But can we ever know?
Most major religions ask us to believe in a higher power, controlling and creating. This in and of itself is a form of simulation. If one believes that a super being can formulate an entire reality, how is this different than the potential idea of an advanced societal power doing the same thing with a computer? Most Judeo-Christian religions believe in the idea of an afterlife. One could argue that this is a form of simulation theory, that our reality is not the base reality, that there are other realities, such as heaven and hell, that do not conform to our physical laws of nature, but also influence our physical world.
Kabbalah posits a world full of individualized perceptions and illusions, i.e., my concept of the color blue is different than yours. The world is our subjectively perceived experience and highly influenced by not only our senses, but our souls. Does anything exist outside of us then? Are dreams mini-simulations that echo a larger dream-adjacent life we're living?
In Hinduism, the concept of Maya is an often debated topic. It was originally interpreted as a magic power with which a god can make human beings believe in what turns out to be an illusion. Another perspective is that everything is governed by our consciousness, like how we attribute money to mean success and power.
Simulation theory spans many of the fields that govern our lives: religion, philosophy, physics. Are we living in a computer simulation? Does that matter? If our world was virtual, would our actions matter any less? Humanity will always question its origins, and as technology improves, it sometimes creates more questions than answers.
Mr. Bunker's Conspiracy Time podcast will be right back after this brief message.
Hey, Bunk Funkers! This is Andy, and I'm here with my co-host, your co-host, Art. And we're coming at you today to let you know that we launched a Patreon. So if you have the means and you want to support the show, come visit us at patreon.com/MrBunkerPod and consider becoming a subscriber.
Get an extra podcast episode every month of our brand new show, Andy and Art Debunked, available only on Patreon. We're going to be covering various urban legends and myths. We'll do TV and movie commentary tracks and reviews. We'll do pop culture conspiracies and much, much more.
Becoming a subscriber will also get you access to our Discord channel, where you can chat with me and Art and other bunk funkers from around the globe.
You'll also get plenty of behind-the-scenes content and much, much more.
So please, help us support the show and keep the lights on in the bunker. Visit us at patreon.com/MrBunkerPod and become a subscriber today.
Welcome back to Mr. Bunker's Conspiracy Time podcast. That was our research of simulation theory. Andy, or should I say virtual Andy?
Virtue Andy.
Virtue Andy. Let's give some general thoughts on this. It's a very, I will say, listeners, this is another subject that could easily span multiple episodes. You know, we're trying to give you
The whole enchilada.
We're trying to give you the whole enchilada, and maybe in a future episode or something, we give you the sides that we missed, right?
Yeah, we give you a nice salad.
Yeah, we give you a little
A bowl of guac.
A bowl of guac. We gave you some chips and salsa. We give you
Refried beans.
refried beans. Something else that you want, you know?
Right.
But we're trying to give you, the whole enchilada here, and there's a lot to cover with this. It's very dense.
This is a big topic.
What are your initial impressions, Andy? Simulation theory.
Like, my initial impression on simulation theory is I don't want to jump to conclusions without stretching here, but simulation theory to me, it seems a little impractical.
What do you mean?
Like, it's one of those things where I always ask, but why?
What do you mean about why?
So if someone had the computing power and they were able to create a simulation and completely simulate this world, and we have consciousness in it,
Right.
why would you choose to do that?
Well, they might be trying to learn something.
Like, this is a study on,
Mm-hmm.
they've completely faked us to
Mhm,
study what our lives were like.
Or literally, it's Westworld.
Yeah.
Literally, this is some fun amusement park for post-humans to go fucking adventure in.
Yeah.
To go fuck around in the 21st or whatever century we're in now.
Yeah.
We're in the 21st century?
It does raise that interesting. Yeah, we're in the 21st
What
century.
year is it?
I don't know. I'm in a bunker.
Boy, if this is a simulation, I want a fucking reset button, baby.
Yeah, right? I mean, ugh, boy.
Can I fucking change my code, please?
This is not how I like to game, personally.
Yeah, I'm uninstalling.
Yeah,
I'm rage
this,
quitting, dude. This
This
is not working
game
for me.
is not fun.
No, we're joking. We love ourselves.
Our lives are amazing.
Yes.
We're
Just trapped in a bunker.
but it's
Well, I think there's lots of reasons why they would. There's just, that they want to learn something, or just the fact that they can.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, because to me, what I come away from it is that the amount of computing power necessary is
Okay.
enormous. Like, if they were going to simulate a whole universe,
Yeah.
Even just to simulate Earth
Is a lot.
is a lot. And we could say probably that Earth exists in this simulation, even in its entirety, right?
Right.
So they probably don't need to completely simulate all of the universe, because there's parts of the universe we can't explore.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff that they wouldn't ever have to do until we get to that point.
Exactly. It's just, there's just stuff out there, and we don't know what's out there. And then, the simulation just adds it in ad hoc as needed,
Right. And sure, that stuff is that's going to take a lot of computing power, but just to simulate Earth even is a huge amount of computing power.
Well, see, the technological aspect I don't struggle with that, because again, it's the Pong thing. I mean, 40 years is nothing. That's not even a blip on the grand scheme of things, right?
Right.
According to science.
Yeah, I mean, geologically,
We had Pong.
That's
and
no time.
It took so much computing power just to get Pong or whatever, right? And it's like, we're recording this now on a computer that the games I can run are very close to, they're still games, but some of them are so photorealistic, and they're getting better every single fucking year.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw a thing the other day. You remember Boston Dynamics?
Yeah.
You know them. You've seen them.
Right.
10 years ago, they had some dopey fucking robot that could barely walk. I mean, this thing literally looked like a person who had to take a shit, and it, like that's how it walked. Like it was like, that's all it did. It just walked. And if you kick the thing,
Yeah, it had a clenched butt the whole time. Yeah,
butt.
you could. Yeah,
it had a tight anus.
I know the one you're talking about.
On this robot, and you know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, I know that robot. Oh, do I ever? I'm a clinched robot connoisseur.
And if you kick this thing, if you touch this thing, it would just fall over like a piece of shit.
Right.
Nowadays, they got a fucking robot that can like scale. It can like do the American Ninja Warrior, like the Ninja Warrior thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've seen that.
You've seen that? Like it can like jump back and forth between pillars while ascending.
Right.
In height. It's insane. And it's 10 years of work.
Yeah.
So the idea that like this breakthrough that like, oh, technological, like I feel like I can accept that so easily.
Okay, you can accept that, but think about the energy required to run such a thing.
Well, that's why, there's work on quantum computing, just making computers so small. They're like tiny, but they still have immense power.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't need a lot of energy to run something like that. He just kind of posits this idea of it's a planet,
right?
Sized computer, but the technology aspect to me. But then who's to also say that there isn't just a couple people who are simulated, or a couple of us that are conscious, quote unquote, using our consciousness from inside the real reality, right, the physical world, and they got your brain hooked up to some kind of machine or something, and then the rest of you're simulated, I'm not, or the other way around.
I would never know that you're not simulated.
You don't know. You have no idea what I'm thinking,
and you don't know that I'm not simulated.
That's exactly
because
true.
Even if I say that doesn't mean that I'm conscious of it.
That's right.
It just means that I'm programmed to respond in that fashion to you.
That's right. And I can never know what you think. You might look at me and say the shirt I'm wearing is blue, and I would say no, it's not. It's gray. And you're like, well, it's blue. It's blue to me. How do I know?
I'll tell you, Art, I think about this a lot.
Do you?
And specifically, I think about in terms of the visible spectrum of light. Because consider it for just a moment. Our eyes are created in such a way, or are formed in such a way, that we only perceive a certain part of the spectrum of light. But really, there's all this other light.
There's so much other stuff
that exists that we don't see at all with our eyes.
It's like how we look at the sky. The sky isn't actually blue. We just perceive it that way because of the way the fucking light hits it.
So I think about if our eyes were attuned somewhat differently.
Yeah.
What else would we see?
Exactly. Maybe we'd see the ones and zeros, man.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Maybe we wouldn't see anything.
The science aspect of it is so, I didn't know that. And that was tough for me. Listeners, I'm going to tell you this, even though it's embarrassing. I had to get my friend's little brother, who's 16, and he's in an AP physics class right now in high school, to explain the double slit experiment to me. And then I also brought in my buddy who has a degree in physics to also explain it to me, because I cannot wrap my head around it, because I am a dum-dum.
I'll tell you this much. I can understand the words that make up the double slit experiment.
Right.
But the underlying scientific thing,
right?
I have no idea.
The thing you need to know is just that it raised a lot more questions. Like people,
it's pretty interesting.
Like nowadays we have this idea, like it's kind of understood that light is both a wave and a particle.
Yeah.
Which is fucking bizarre. Like it shouldn't behave that way.
It's weird.
And the weirdest thing about the double slit, and they've done it, they've done kind of modern versions, like the if you want to Google the delayed choice quantum erasure, that experiment like did it in an even crazier way, where like a lot of people say like, well, it's the method of detection. It's not like they're just taking a picture of these electrons. They have to the method of detection, my friend described it to me as like, they're shooting all these ping pong balls like from across a football field at a thing. And then someone like throws a football perpendicular to them, and then where the two meet is kind of how they understand the detection of it, right? Like, and quantum physics and quantum like science and all this shit is so baffling because we just don't understand any of it. Like, there's so many questions. It's like there's something like you can either know the momentum or the position of a particle. You can't know both. And it's just like, there's so many things we don't understand, but this stuff brought up a lot of questions, and much like many conspiracy theories where there's the unexplained, we don't understand. The simple answer is probably like, we just don't fucking get it yet. We don't know. We don't have the technology.
Right. It's still things that we have to understand more.
But to conspiracy theorists and to other theorists, they're like, why does that exist, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Why is the speed of light have this constant thing? Why do the physical laws of the universe happen for a certain way? Well, maybe they coded it that way.
Right.
Maybe the architects put it that way, Andy.
Yeah.
The science stuff, though, was super interesting. Because people didn't understand why it would happen. You would expect that electrons, it's like they literally change depending on whether we were looking at them.
Right.
If you're not looking at them, they act like, nice little, or if you're not looking at them, they act like chaotic waves.
Right.
And that's the pattern across the backdrop, right? Like this wave pattern.
That's like that scientific conundrum where you change the outcome by measuring it.
Exactly. It's really crazy stuff, and there's a lot of other, there's other phenomenon that theorists bring up, but this double slit one is kind of the big one that a lot of them talk about.
I mean, I'm not smart enough to really like get insightful about it,
right?
But I mean, I will say that stuff like that to me is hard to wrap my mind around.
Right?
That something changes just because you measured it. But I guess, it's true. It depends on the way you measure it, right, though?
Yeah.
Because your measurement tool is maybe not perfect.
Right. It's not like we're taking a photo of these electrons. Like I said,
right.
there's probably some kind of interference, but still, it's bizarre that they act a certain way when you're looking at them and they don't when you're not.
Yeah. I don't know. It's bizarre. But then again, it's sort of like if I used a ruler to measure like how much gas was in my car.
Right.
Like I probably wouldn't arrive at a super smart conclusion.
Or inaccurate, yeah.
Yeah. Like I would probably be like, this is weird.
Well, let's shift focus then, Andy, and then let's talk a little bit about let's start at the beginning. Do you think we'll make it
to a post-human?
Yes. And a post-human society is kind of one that's like pretty much the singularity where like technology has hit the physical limits of science and like we can't go any further. That's what they mean by post-human.
Right. We've achieved this.
We're beyond humanity.
We've achieved this perfect meld with technology.
Right.
And there's no further advancement that we're at our like peak evolution.
Exactly.
We've exhausted humanity and we're completely integrated with technology.
You think we'll make it?
No.
So you think we're gonna go extinct?
It seems likely.
We're gonna fuck each other up somehow.
I just have that.
We made it this far.
We've made it this far, but
let's not get caught up in the idea though that this isn't always the best time to be alive.
No,
the present. We can both agree on that the present is always the best time to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people will argue that for a lot of various reasons, but the way that technology advances, you are always in the present the best position to be in.
Right.
Because you have the most benefit of this collected knowledge of humanity.
Right.
But that said, we might go extinct.
The nanotechnology is kind of scary.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to that in the description. That's really interesting. Like they were like, yeah, in the wrong hands, yeah, you could pretty much destroy the world with nanobacteria that eats all organic matter.
Yeah.
And kills everybody.
Yeah. I mean, nanotechnology, and
can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see it. How hard would it be to stop? I mean,
I think there's a Michael Crichton book about that. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but he's the author of Jurassic Park.
Michael Crichton?
Yeah. What did I say?
What'd you say? Crichton?
Crichton.
Michael Crouton. Oh yeah, this Markle Crouton book that I read called the The last word.
What?
The Lost World.
Oh.
What were we talking about?
Whether we're going to go
Simulation theory?
extinct.
Oh yeah, extinction. I mean, with climate change, Art,
Mhm.
we're, obviously this recent UN report says, I mean, maybe we'll get into this in another episode,
Right.
but that there's 10 years before we pass the point of no return,
Right.
that climate change is going to be irreparable.
Mm-hmm. But who's to
And-
say that technology can't advance, to something we don't even foresee that
That's the thing.
fucking fixes it?
What about carbon subtraction technology?
Right.
These things could develop rapidly. But I mean, if things continue the way they're going, it sure seems like there could be like,
you're a bit of a pessimist.
I'm a pessimist. Yeah, I would say
That's a bleak outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it puts, there's so many people.
Yeah.
And if sea levels rise, it puts a lot of pressure. It puts a lot of pressure on like what are going to be like already strained, agricultural resources.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It seems like there could be a lot of competition and there could be a lot of problems, but we might make it. I'm not saying we won't for sure, but I kind of feel like we'll probably go extinct.
Jeez.
Because I mean, but it depends. It's like you said, how long does it take us to get to a post-human civilization?
Could be right around the corner.
I mean, could it be in the next 1,000 years?
Could be.
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, have you ever played around with any augmented reality or VR technology?
Oh yeah, I played Pokemon Go before. I've played it.
Yeah, that's right. You were a big Pokemon Go guy.
Was I?
I think you were.
Was
I
it-
was done with it within like a week. I was like, yeah, this fucking sucks. I can't battle my friends. Then what's the point?
Yeah, I don't know. It lost. I mean, I did it for a little while, but it didn't like hook me like it did some people. But yeah, I mean, I've not done like any like, I've never like walked around with like the Google glasses or anything.
There's a couple apps you can get on your phone. I think I deleted them. I think one of them is called Stack. It's a game. Andy, it truly is. Yeah, I deleted them off my phone. Oh, here it is. Stack AR. And then the other one is called Thing with a Y.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane what they're capable of. I mean, like it's real. It's here. It's on your phone. Your phone can literally map out and calculate the surface area of something that it's looking at, and then understand like what it's doing is like rapidly taking photos so fast that it is like mapping the area, and then it knows how to position an object in it, and then you can walk around the object. It's baffling. And I mean, I feel like we are so close to a world where what's to say that, we can put that in the lenses of our glasses, and all of a sudden you're walking down the street and you have a heads-up display. And then, of course, they're going to fucking fill it with ads.
Yeah.
You're going to fucking be
Naturally.
walking around, and you're going to see fucking ads for everything. I'm going to stare at a Starbucks logo, and all of a sudden I'll see Frappuccino ads everywhere.
I drove a car recently that had a heads-up display.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a big milestone for me.
I haven't driven a car in almost 5 or 6 years, so.
But it's pretty wild, honestly.
What car were you driving?
It was
You driving a Teslas?
no.
You
it
getting a
was-
Tesla?
No, it was a Honda Accord.
Oh.
So
it had like a touch screen? What are you talking about?
no, it had a heads-up display.
Like in the.
Like above the dash, like on the windshield, you could put your navigation up there,
Ooh.
speedometer up there.
How was that?
It was nice. You don't have to look at another thing. You can just like glance down
Wow.
and see it. But I mean, that's not really augmented reality so much as it is.
Right.
But I mean, to me, this is a leap, right? Like you have this in your car windshield.
I mean, think about 10 years ago where you were. We didn't have these fucking things walking around with us like
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago. And how much they've grown in the last under 10 years.
How much this went from just being a phone.
For listeners, we're holding our smartphones.
We're holding, yeah. Did you see this? But the smartphone is incredible.
Yeah.
We went from having a device that was used to make a phone call and send a short text message.
That you had limited numbers of.
Limited characters, yeah. And now I have the whole internet in my pocket all the time.
Do you ever think about that? Like how fast technology has grown? Because like, I'm a big Twitch user.
Yeah.
So I hang out in a lot of Twitch communities. And it's like, that means someone across the country or across the world is uploading at a constant bit rate in 1080p a live stream of them playing a video game, doing something, and then it is being sent to me instantaneously, and I am downloading it, and the delay is now it's at like 2 or 3 seconds.
Minuscule.
I can type something and that person can instantly read it and respond to me.
Yeah.
And it even within the last like couple of years that has shrunk. It used to be like 10 seconds,
Yeah.
or whatever. And now it's like, it's so negligible.
Yeah.
It's insane to me that I can just do that at all times.
Yeah.
So who's to say that like even in 5 years, what is that going to look like?
Yeah. It's the possibilities are almost endless.
So
honestly.
that's why the technology portion of this, like I am like almost fully on board with.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll have a planet-sized computer. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? They'll figure it out. They got a fucking car that can drive itself. That shit is around the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you can go buy a Tesla Model 3 right now, and that thing drives itself relatively on the highway. It does. And city driving's coming later this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
you gonna get in one?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I haven't driven a car in 5 or 6 years.
So you love the self-driving car?
I love the idea of a car that drives itself.
I mean,
keep the streak alive.
Like if we just focus on self-driving cars too, there's this societal impact to humanity, because when you think about a self-driving car, we basically have to redesign our whole civilization. We're so ill-equipped for a self-driving car.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Think about how much space we devote to parking in this country.
Yeah.
You would never need it.
What do you mean?
You wouldn't need it. Self-driving car. Nobody would
need a park.
Nobody would own a car.
What are you talking about?
You would use like a rideshare service.
Oh.
They would own the cars.
Yeah, I mean, I think you
cars.
would see a lot more public transit probably, maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
Think about
You're a big public transit guy, but I fucking hate it.
No, but I'm saying like think about it. Why would you need to buy a self-driving car and own it?
You're saying that like people would just take the bus?
No, people would take a self-driving car. But you would just you'll use your smartphone. You'll pull up the app.
So
the
you just call up Uber or Lyft, and they send you...
They send a self-driving car to your place. They
You're
pick
right.
you up. They drop you off. You don't need to own the car.
No, you're right.
There's no reason for you to own a self-driving car.
Well, then we just get rid of the parking lots.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
But then think about how that changes. Like, do we need traffic control devices?
No.
No. The cars...
Get rid of them.
The cars will be able to leverage that computing power, and they'll be able to know where all the other cars are that are within that reasonable like span of their trajectory.
Yeah, they have like little infrared cameras.
Yeah. So you could go as fast as the car can go.
Yeah, everywhere would be highways.
Yeah. There would be no reason to have like the way we design cities and stuff. It would all.
And then they say, for the record, I'm not some kind of Tesla fanboy. I just think it's cool that there is a semi-self-driving car.
Yeah.
And the Tesla Model 3 is somewhat affordable. It's pretty affordable. I mean, you can get like as far as like self-driving cars go for new tech, it's like $36,000.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking affordable.
Yeah.
And it's electric. So you don't have to pay for gas. But anyway, I'm not some kind of fanboy. I'm not like, oh my God, Tesla. I don't have a car.
Are electric cars really sustainable though?
There's a lot of charging stations, and you can get home charging stations.
But our energy grid already is like pretty inefficient.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the introduction of a lot of electric cars strain it further?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a smart scientist.
I'm not a smart. I don't know.
I'm SMRT. I'm art without the SM.
That's what I think about. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we need to fix structurally.
I feel like they'll figure that
Infrastructure.
out. Infrastructure.
Yeah, they can figure it out, sure, but you kind of have to walk before you run.
Right.
And I think that's where I kind of come at simulation theory.
Yeah.
Even if we make computers capable of this kind of processing power, do we have the actual infrastructure to support such devices?
Not right now, but
I mean, I guess we're talking like years in the future.
right. Well, what do you think, Andy? Do you think that, let's go on to a little bit of option 2. Do you think it's immoral? Do you think we should even bother creating a Matrix? Is that wrong? If we had the power, if you could go into Westworld, would you do it?
No, it doesn't feel right to me.
Kind of doesn't, right?
It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right.
Because those robots in Westworld are conscious.
Yeah.
If
Spoiler
they were
alert.
if they
I never finished it. Put me to sleep.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Spoiler alert. But spoiler alert for
I
what
watched 2 episodes and I fell asleep. I was like, I'm not watching
spoiler alert for what I said just before the spoiler
this. We
alert.
can put a spoiler alert in
Warning.
post.
Yeah. We'll
Maybe.
fix it in post.
Probably not.
No, but it'll be fine. Anyway, if the robots achieve consciousness,
Right.
like the AI gets so sophisticated that they are conscious,
Right.
then you're,
And what is consciousness?
yeah. I mean, that's a great question. But I don't know. I feel like if there's like this.
Why would we make a world where that's going to be the argument is, do these things feel?
Yeah, there's some philosophy.
I don't care about my Sims. I'll fucking lock my Sims in a goddamn bathroom all day long.
Yeah.
And they'll piss themselves and it's funny. And I'll fucking send them out without eating, and I'll play Grand Theft Auto and I'll shoot people. Which is something you would never do in real life, but you run around like it's Grand Theft Auto. I don't give a shit.
How would you feel though if you found out that the AI in The Sims was sophisticated enough that while the Sims themselves are in this virtualized world, that when they are set on fire, they feel it?
I wouldn't fucking do it.
Yeah, right? Like I wouldn't do it either. We only do that because we're operating under the auspices or under the ideal that they don't feel anything.
Yes.
That these are just completely rendered beings that have no consciousness, and it's just totally simulated.
Well, that's why I think that option 2 is probably the most
Even if they could do it, they wouldn't do it.
right.
It's unlikely
that
they
people
would
are
do
just
it.
going to be like, this is immoral.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's no stopping some asshole from creating a Westworld.
Yeah.
And people would probably use it.
Yeah. This would be like the dark web of the post-human
Yes.
phase of our existence.
You can go play around in some AI world and they don't feel anything. I mean, wasn't that the subject of a Black Mirror on Netflix episode?
Some people think that it's actually immoral to have children because you have a moral obligation
But no.
to other people to not cause them to suffer. But if you create life, you necessarily cause the suffering of that life.
Well, now you're getting in a whole fucking circle.
Yeah, sure.
This is a real Ouroboros kind of fucking snake eating its own tail. Big word, I know.
But I'm just saying that's
scientist.
That's philosophy. Like
It is.
you have a duty to not cause suffering to another creature, but by bringing it into existence, you necessarily must cause it to suffer. Therefore, the act of creating that being is immoral.
It's hard to argue with you there.
So maybe post-humans...
Also, kids are annoying. Don't bring them to weddings.
Whoa.
Yikes.
Bitter much?
Sorry, Andy. Andy has a child.
I don't feel bad about it.
I don't mean to offend you.
I don't feel bad about it.
You don't get offended.
No.
Well, I think it is interesting, and I think there's definitely a weird philosophical argument there.
Can we talk about the religious aspect of it, though?
Yeah, let's talk about the religious aspect of it.
I think that's interesting in that to say that maybe God is the architect.
He's
of the
an
Matrix.
omnipotent being.
Right.
I think that at first glance at simulation theory, I think a lot of very religious people would probably get offended by it. And that's fine. I'm not saying that they can't be, but
Sure.
I think when you really start to look into it, they are so closely related because, you know, God is this omnipotent being that doesn't obey the laws of our physical world. So it is outside of our physical world. You know, he's creating things. He's thinking things into existence, right? And this appearing. This is in Genesis, right?
Yeah, he set the rules.
Right. He says there's going to be light.
Right.
There's going to be ground. There's going to be sky. And
God sets the parameters by which we exist.
And so then God created us, and we're created in his image, right? This Imago Dei, to bring in some Latin.
Wow.
A little Jesuit flair.
Yeah.
We're created in his image. So we are created to be like God, to look to in his image, right? And when we think about things, they don't necessarily exist, but they do in our mind's eye. So if I think about a waterfall, or I think about a tasty pastrami sandwich, or I think about, which I frequently do, or I think about anything, right?
These are the arts thinking about things.
The only two
greatest
things I
hits.
think about are waterfalls and how you shouldn't go chasing them, and pastrami sandwiches.
See, it's funny because I think about a waterfall of Russian dressing
You want a big Reuben.
and a tasty watercress sandwich.
Oh, God. If we're the simulated, we are big time mistakes.
Start over.
If
There's
we got
some-
simulated, man, someone's got to
This
debug
code's broken.
This code.
Yeah.
Get rid of us. But you know what I mean? Like, you can create things too in your own mind's eye.
Yeah.
That's the weird part about consciousness is we're all alone. We're all individual. And there's so much of the like spirituality of it is like this idea that consciousness, we're all connected. We're all interconnected in our consciousness, and we're all little information systems. And the more we work together, the more we cooperate and spread love, man, which is also what they say in the Bible, right? What's the message of the Bible? To love one another.
Mm-hmm.
To love your neighbor as you love yourself, or do unto your neighbor as you would have.
There's a lot of messages in the Bible.
There's a lot of messages in the Bible, like how you can't eat a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Be stoned to death.
Yeah.
If your son ever disrespects you, you have to kill him on the spot. I'm sorry. It's Leviticus.
Them's the rules.
Them's the rules, bub.
I won't be disrespected.
It's interesting though, because I think so much of it is wrapped up. And like I said, it's like, so there's this idea that we live in this reality with physical limits that God put in place, right?
Mhm.
But then when we die, we'll go to a different reality, like heaven, where there's no physical limits. I can fucking fly around with a AK-47 machine gun on my Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Do we know that though?
I live in a, well,
See
if
again.
it's heaven,
See again, we've imagined that.
that's what I want.
We have no real
I want fucking dope wings and a tattoo.
we have no real evidence to suggest that that's truly what heaven's like.
We can't know.
Most of the accounts of people having visions of heaven is that it's like you're completely like God's always surrounded by the heavenly hosts, the angels and the spirits of the people who have passed on, and they're all just praising God's name.
Right.
So
Well, that gets in the idea of that this idea that God is love, right? And if that's the whole way that we grow as a society, right? We spread love, we love one another.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to make the connections or say it in a way that sounds smart, but I think that I'm onto something.
yeah,
I'm like almost there, like kind of trying to connect the dots.
you're
Like I'm doing a connect the dots in a highlight magazine, but something's off.
this is your own double slit. You're getting some feedback, but you don't quite understand it. You probably need more time to process and
I'm just like making connections here,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Well,
get
I
it.
mean, that's another big part of it that we kind of all left out of the script portion. Again, trying to give you the whole enchilada. So, all these people who have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, or they take ayahuasca or DMT or all these fucking weird drugs, they have these experiences where time slows down and they come outside themselves and they astral project and they do all these weird things. You know, you could say that is you experiencing the real consciousness that is in the real reality outside of our little computer that runs us, right? If that's like the avatar in World of Warcraft floating out and seeing me in my underwear curled up on my computer chair, covered in Dorito dust, playing the game, controlling it, right? Have you ever had any out-of-body experiences or weird shit like that happen to you?
No, I've never had an out-of-body experience or anything like that. But as a rebuttal, I'll say that consciousness is weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes us conscious, again, it gets down to perception. So your own mind is not, your own senses aren't super reliable.
Right.
In the sense of that you don't actually absorb every stimuli in the world all the time. Right?
Right.
Like you filter.
The tree falls in the forest thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have an out-of-body experience, if you have an imagination, can't you imagine that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, just because, especially when you like introduce like some form of duress or a substance or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
Like, though you think you've had this experience, that doesn't mean that you actually transcended your own body, that your consciousness escaped the confines of your own mortal coil.
I think I agree with you on that. I think there's a lot of examples of it where it's like, well, it's kind of like it goes back to you think my shirt is one color than it is. It's like, well, how do I know they're not fucking with me? I don't know their brain. I can't ever understand what you're thinking. So maybe you think it's real and
you've had that
it's not real to
experience. You've had that experience. You think it's real. It's real for you. That doesn't mean that in a cosmic sense that it's real.
Exactly. It's
in
real
an absolute
for you
sense.
because our reality is informed by our perceptions.
Like, I mean, to go back to driving, if you're driving and somebody does a thing, another driver does a thing that annoys you, your perception of that is what annoys you.
Yes.
Not the actual act.
Yes.
Is the act unjust in a like fully righteous sense? In my case, yes. My anger is always righteous.
But listeners don't know this, but Andy is a very aggressive driver.
Yeah.
Do not cut him off. Don't, please.
But my anger is always righteous.
But not a bit.
But your perception of it, there's so many other things that you don't perceive,
right,
that inform that person's actions, that then, without them being aware even of it, informs your reaction to their act. So in a like full sense,
right,
you don't really have like this fulsome understanding of whether you should be upset or not.
Yes.
You just react to the stimuli that you can perceive.
And certain events might be going on that you don't kind of understand that would inform your perception, right? Like maybe you don't know that maybe the guy who cut you off is rushing to the hospitals to see his wife who's just gone into labor.
Yeah.
If you'd understood that, your perception might change, right? Your reality might change. Suddenly you're not mad, you're understanding.
You say, oh, if I knew that, I would have been okay with it.
But you don't know that because you don't have that information.
So it's right for me to feel that way. I have that experience.
Right.
I know that. But in a holistic sense, I may not be right.
It's interesting. It's so much to wrap your head around. I do think that so much of it, though, there is like a positivity to it. I mean, there is, it is to like, work together to keep moving forward and try and advance civilization. You hear about a lot of these, and we kind of already touched on that about the different out-of-body experiences that some people have. You kind of roll your eyes at it. It's like, oh, they just suddenly understood everything about reality. But that being said, there are weird, different deja vu and different glitches like that.
Yeah.
I get deja vu, I wouldn't say frequently, but I get it enough that it weirds me out. We don't understand why that happens. We don't fully understand like dreaming, I don't think either. Some people say that dreaming is the way the brain kind of reprocesses everything and shuts down, quote unquote, to rebuild itself.
Yeah.
It's just doing that. It's kind of like playing like a little halftime show for you while it sets everything up for the next act or something like that. I can't think of any specific deja vu events. It's always like somebody will say something to you that triggers the deja vu event. Do you ever have that? Like, and then you get a weird sort of experience where you're still listening to somebody, but you feel and understand that you're having deja vu.
Yeah. But I think that well, think about this. You have memories from when you were a child that you can't remember.
Allegedly.
Like these things are imprinted in your mind.
It could be implanted.
That information's. Yeah. Okay. That's true. I'll grant you that. But let's just,
for the sake of
set
argument,
it aside for this specific argument. When you were 1 year old, you processed information in your brain differently than you do today.
That's correct.
So you have memories that now you can't access. But our brain is, triggered by this mixture of inputs that we extract from the world.
Certain pieces of that input you don't learn till later in your life, like object permanence.
Right. So I think it's possible that deja vu is the brain reacting to like sets of information that it has stored that your conscious mind doesn't have access enough to put it all together.
Right.
To say that I know for sure that this is exactly the same as this remembered thing, but you know that you have some prior connection to it. You can sense it, and it gives you that feeling of deja vu.
Yeah.
That's my take on deja vu.
Well, you're always about the most simple answer is usually the truth, right?
Right.
So, I mean, unless, Andy, is there any other sort of discussion topics that you want to touch on with simulation theory?
No, I mean, we could talk about it forever until it happens or doesn't happen.
That's actually one of the funny parts about Elon Musk's, in the video, he says that him and his brother get into these simulation arguments a lot. And it's, for some reason, it always happens when they're in a hot tub together. Which, listen, you want to hang out with your brother in a hot tub, that's fucking...
Be my guest.
Be my guest. I love hanging in a hot... You don't like hot tubs.
I'm okay with hot tubs.
No, I thought you weren't a hot tub guy.
I don't like to be that hot.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm changing.
You flip-flopped on hot tubs?
I'm a waffler.
Oh, jeez. But he says that, like, whenever they're in the hot tub, they can't talk about simulation theory. I think because then they won't get out and they'll get all pruny, which is very gross.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I guess we should give our
verdicts.
Yeah, I guess we should give our final thoughts on simulation theory.
All right. I guess I'll start.
Go ahead.
I agree with what I think you're going to say. So
you don't
again,
know what I'm going to say, Andy.
I don't know what you're going to say.
You don't understand my consciousness.
My perception of...
Don't act like you do. You don't understand me.
My perception and what leads me to believe what you're going to say.
I'm a complex, beautiful
I agree
being.
with what I think you'll say. And that's that the idea that if we are truly part of a simulation, if we could be simulated, that post-humans probably would choose not to. They would make a choice not to do it. Because I don't think that it's worth it. There's ethical questions. And presumably our ethics would have evolved. So are we living in a simulation? I'm going to say unlikely on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oof.
And I think
big take.
Things like the double slit.
Hot take.
I think it just needs more time. We need to understand more about the universe. Yeah. And eventually things like that will become crystalline. That's my take. I
think things are going to become a little bit crystalline light. My take on it.
Was I supposed to audibly react to that?
Yes.
Oh. What? Oh?
Crystal light.
Yeah, I get the reference.
The drink mix?
Yeah, I get it.
Delicious.
Dump some powder on this podcast.
I don't know, Andy. I don't think we're in agreement again.
Wow.
Let's start from a technological standpoint, highly likely out of 10. I think we'll get there. I'm so convinced that technology, the insanity by which we rapidly progress every single day is just, it blows my mind.
I'll agree with you. If humanity makes it to the point where we can develop this, then yes, I think that from a technological standpoint, will we have the capability? I'll agree. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's highly likely. I mean, just look at what we have now.
It's an almost certainty.
Where will we be in 40 years? Blows my mind. I think you're right that in post-humans, there will be an ethical debate, but I don't know if they'll see it as, I don't know if we will grow, there might be something too much to learn, or there might be too much to do, or maybe these post-humans will be so unfeeling and so robotic and so whatever that they don't care if they're hurting these ones and zeros, because after they die, we just cease to exist and we're just pieces of code. And it's also, I don't think you can assume that we are the only civilization. What if there's another advanced civilization way past the black hole that they just took a picture of, right? That gets there first. And what if they got there first and they simulated us already? I mean, what if the Anunnaki simulated us already and they're sitting there on Nibiru and they're having a couple of fucking Arnold Palmers? Because Arnold Palmers are ubiquitous.
That's
the one goes across
constant,
the skies.
Yeah, across all dimensions.
What if they're sitting there and they just ran a bunch of numbers? A bunch of different systems where they did things differently because they want to see what happens. I don't think it's safe to assume that we are the only civilization, we are the base reality. But that being said, I do think you make a strong argument for how I think most people would see it as immoral, but at the same time, I don't know what these post-humans will think.
I actually think that post-humans would have more affinity for simulated beings because we've achieved singularity with the machine.
I don't know, though.
Therefore, would we not be adding that human element of empathy into the machine?
I don't think so. I think we would become more machine than man. Sometimes. In certain scenarios where I think you could convince people that it's... And also, there's no stop. Like, if the technology existed, what is to stop, like we said, just some company doing it and creating some kind of Westworld environment where you can go and, for a Sunday leisure activity, go live in 2019 and, I don't know, fucking hang out. Hang out in Chicago.
Yeah.
Get gacked on and dragged to a bunker.
Yeah. Go visit a Dr. Pepper castle in your local supermarket.
So what rating did you give it? You gave it highly unlikely out of 10?
I gave it unlikely.
I'm going to give it a highly plausible out of 10.
Whoa, highly plausible.
Because here's the other thing, though, is even if we are a simulation, does it matter? Our choices still matter, right? We still affect each other. Our consciousnesses, according to our own perceived realities, still feel pain and suffering. And when you're mean to somebody, it hurts and you go home and you cry about it. Especially if you're mean, you read a mean comment on the internet, or people just stare at you and say, "Get out of here, you stupid, ugly freak," which happens a lot to both of us.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that even if you're programmed to behave a certain way, if your perception of your behavior still gives you a choice, then you still bear the weight of the consequences of all of your choices. Therefore, even if you're programmed to make a specific choice, if you're not aware of that programming, then you still have free will in that sense.
Exactly.
Therefore, you still have to deal with any of the consequences by your actions.
That's right. We are programmed to think that we have free will. So then we
have it.
Who cares? We have it.
Yeah.
We have it.
I don't think it matters if we're in a simulation or not.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
In a real sense. It matters in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
In an existence sense, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe
and if we are, then we are. Then I'm simulated.
If I'm never aware of it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. If it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
I can never truly prove it unless I somehow
become
Truman
aware,
show this shit.
Yeah. If I become aware that I'm a simulation,
then you're fucked.
Then, yeah, suddenly that's a game changer. But if I'm unaware, ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. What about you, dear listeners? What do you think? Is ignorance bliss? Does it matter? We're in a simulation. Tell us
Are
your
we in a
thoughts.
simulation?
Hashtag simulate this. And tweet at us with hashtag simulate this at Mr. Bunker Pod on Twitter. Let us know what you think about the simulation theory. Let us know about your out-of-body experiences with hashtag gotta get that bod. And tweet at us at Mr. Bunker Pod. And let us know about your experiences with VR technology too.
What hashtag will that be?
Hashtag VR technology.
Oh, that one was much less colorful.
I ran out of steam. I ran out of code, Andy, but and much like this podcast, we've run out of time. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us. Andy, do you have any last thoughts you want to get out there to the listeners before we... I mean, listen, we're going to go home.
Yeah.
But this time for sure, we're going to make an effort, right?
I hope that the next time you hear from us, it'll be under different circumstances.
That's right. You'll hear about us on the news because we've captured Mr. Bunker.
And brought him to justice.
Brought him to justice, but hey, no promises.
Things happen.
Anyway, for the titular Bunker and for my co-host, Andy Hart, this is Arthur Stone saying, that was the whole enchilada.
Nummy.